Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Ambition. I'm one of your hosts, Gabrielle Remo, and thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Foresight 2020, a political segment where we will be talking all things presidential election up until November 3rd. It has been an exhausting few weeks in the political world. For starters, Donald Trump had COVID and checked into the Walter Reed Medical Center, then soon checked out afterwards and said, "Don't be afraid of COVID." And First Lady Melania Trump contracted the virus as well, and so did their son, Barron. Multiple Republican politicians have also contracted the virus, two of which, three if you include the president, were in attendance at the Rose Garden with Supreme Court nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Speaking of Judge Barrett, when I'm filming this, she is in day 3 of her confirmation hearings. Some other major events that have happened: mail-in voting has begun, and multiple states have recorded higher than normal voter turnout rates. All that traction must have come from my first episode where I talked all about getting out to vote. I know it's from that. Surely it's from that. And from the date that I'm filming this, we are just 18 days away from the election. And as much as I'd like to talk about all of the above topics this week's episode is all about the debate. No, not a part 2 of the first completely civil and calm presidential debate, but the vice presidential debate. The debate that did not leave me grabbing for my migraine medication. Let's get into it. The vice presidential debate. There was no turbulence on this one. To get the fundamentals out of the way, the debate was between Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence. It was moderated by USA Today's Susan Page, and everyone in the spotlight was separated by at least 12 feet within 2 walls of plexiglass between them. The 90-minute event, in comparison to the first presidential debate, was less busy, but I would say much more informational on the candidates' policies. Now, before we get serious, let's get all of our laughs out now. Get every hee and ha out and swat it aside. We have to talk about the part of the debate that had Twitter buzzing. We can't go on without discussing the elephant in the room. Or, maybe the fly on the wall, or the fly on the one that just popped a squat on Vice President Pence's head. Have I exhausted this joke enough? I think I have. Actually, just kidding. Who played the bug on SNL? They had to get creative, think something up on the fly. Frankly, for theatrics' sake, it was probably the most eventful portion of the debate. And to be completely honest, most of the points boil down to Trump bad, no, Trump good. But today, we're gonna recap 3 key points from the debate. First, the economy. Harris opened up the economics segment by explaining the fundamental differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump's ideas about the economy. Harris stated that Biden's plan measures the health and strength of the economy based on the health and strength of the American worker and family. Harris stated that Trump's economic plan focuses on how the wealthy are doing. She claimed that if Biden were to win the election on day 1, the administration will be repealing the Trump tax bill and investing it into, well, a lot of things, actually. She mentioned their administration's spending would center around infrastructure, clean and renewable energy, innovation, education, and the student loan crisis. Pence, in response, brought up the Trump administration's pandemic relief funding and how they secured $4 trillion from Congress to give families direct checks through the Paycheck Protection Program. He also talked about the rise in wages for blue-collar workers, the amount of jobs created and maintained throughout Trump's term, and that 11.6 million jobs were put back into the economy despite the recession caused by COVID-19. Pence also claimed that the Trump tax cuts gave the average working family of 4 $2,000 in a tax break per year. Senator Harris fired back at Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which she claimed only gave tax cuts to wealthy families and corporations. She also argued that the Trump administration was taking credit from the rebound of the Obama administration. This here is referencing the 2008 recession, where the Obama administration created the Recovery Act in 2009, which kicked off over 10 years of economic growth. The 2008 recession was considered to be one of the worst in generations, and the Recovery Act, co-led by Joe Biden, was credited to having jump-started a long streak of job creation. A second key point in the debate was China. The United States' foreign relationship with China, as the moderator stated, is one that is complicated and consequential. It is no secret that the trade war has been a talking point in the Trump administration since day one. During the 2016 presidential campaign, then-candidate Trump pointed to China as the reasoning for the loss of U.S. manufacturing jobs and intellectual property. Trump often pointed to the U.S.'s trade deficit with China, which at the time stood at around $346 billion, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Harris counter-argued that the trade war has resulted in the loss of 300,000 manufacturing jobs, and that it's all about the relationships with other foreign countries, not isolating ourselves from them. Pence then argued that Joe Biden was a cheerleader for communist China during the Obama administration. Pence argued that Biden winning would be America surrendering to China. That brings us into the third key point of the debate, which was COVID-19. Both Pence and Harris dodged the questions revolving around the health of their running mates. Neither candidate would answer the moderator's questions about whether they would have talked to their running mates about plans if they pass away or are unable to perform their duties. But in the debate of how the coronavirus pandemic was handled, Pence's primary argument revolved around defending Trump's response to the pandemic. He argued that Trump suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. China is the United States' largest goods trading partner. According to CNN Money, we make up roughly 17% of China's total exports, so overall, there's a visible strain there. Pence also stated that the Trump administration is working very hard to get a vaccine to us by the end of the year. But then, honestly, something strange happened in Pence's argument against the Biden campaign. Pence at one point stated, "When I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a new vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a lot about." You could say I was a bit confused by this statement. This statement, at face value, is just plain weird. What is being plagiarized by Joe Biden saying, in a pandemic, one that has yet to see a resolution, might I add, that he would like to advance testing, create new PPE, and develop a vaccine? Every pharmaceutical company and university research center in the country must be plagiarizing too, right? It was just the most vague plan that most administrations across the world have adopted. Solve the global pandemic fast. Again, it was just a very weird flex on Pence's part. On the other hand, Harris's argument was designed around Trump's failure, the 200,000 lives lost as a result, and the economic fallout that resulted from this pandemic. Harris further attacked the fact that Trump allegedly knew about the virus and chose not to act on it. This claim comes after an audio recording of Trump was leaked that revealed he knew about the severity of the coronavirus in all of its facets. The transmission, its comparison to the flu, the higher risk of fatality, and so on. To wrap it up, there were a few other non-serious things that broke the headlines from the VP debate. For starters, Mike Pence's eye was bloodshot in one corner, which some speculated was a symptom of COVID-19, since Trump had tested positive right before that. Harris had to stop Pence from interrupting her a few times with a very stern but admittedly unsettling smile on her face. Those moments were in stark contrast to the first presidential debate, because when Kamala Harris said, "Vice President, I'm speaking," for the most part, he stopped speaking. Civility in politics is super cool, right? As for who won the debate, I will leave that up to you. It's a lot easier to measure because the candidates this time around were able to have their rhetoric shine through. So what do you think? Did you find yourself agreeing with different points on both sides? Did you find yourself siding with your party more after this debate? Did any of the points motivate you to vote? Because Fly, for one, will definitely be voting based on the policies I heard. Nailed it. Last Fly joke in. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Foresight 2020. Remember to be kind in all that you do and to vote with conviction in this election because it's coming up. Bye for now.